Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us in from. Welcome back to the Human Intelligent Workplace, and in particular, the Human Intelligent Dialogue. Today, we have a great partner with us and a great speaker that I believe is going to provide you the tip of the iceberg on some insights, because as you know, this is just 30-minute piece that we talked to you about. At the end, you'll get all the contact information of Luis. So I'd like to welcome a colleague and friend of over time, Luis Marrero, who is here to speak to us about some interesting perspectives and insights and things that he's been writing and speaking about for quite some time. But I'll give him the opportunity to introduce himself. So Luis, welcome and thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Very happy to be here, Edwin. Thank you for inviting me.
I
And hello
appreciate
to everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Luis, tell us a little bit tell us about who Luis is and how he's gotten to this journey of where he is today, and then we'll dig deeper into what you're all involved in.
Okay. Luis Marrero, and I am the president of the Boston Institute for Meaningful Purpose. I'm also known as the pioneer of meaningful purpose psychology and second wave organization development. Pretty much all my professional life, I've been engaged in working within organizations, either in senior positions or as a external consultant. So that, in a summary, is who I am. I published a couple of books, working in my next two, which I hopefully will have published by next year. So that's a brief introduction of who I am.
Awesome. Thank you. And you will have plenty for those of you that once you listen to Luis, you want to find out some more, you'll learn quite a bit more on his website, the Boston Institute for Meaningful Purpose. So Luis, you know me, I'm always studying trends. That's what I'm about, trends advisor and so forth. So based on some of the emerging trends in human capital and organizational dynamics and the work that you do on meaningful purpose and logoteleology, how do you see those two coming together? What's your perspective, your insights based on the work you do and as you see the trends that are taking place out there?
Okay, so the good news is that there's plenty of solutions out there that we see in some organizations where I call them the positive deviance. It's having a positive effect. They're also proving the fact that when you follow meaningful purpose psychology principles, which are also backed by other sciences, we're not unique from that perspective. And when I say meaningful, it's having this people first orientation where people believe in the human potential and they can maximize that human potential to increase profitability and prosperity for everybody, for all, versus just a few. Um, so I see some very good positive signs. I'm very happy that we, in our science, we contribute also to helping leaders within organizations to choose practices that do work. So that's the good news. The solutions out there, some very few are applying it, they're benefiting from it, but it still is not something that is being maximized by the majority of the companies and even governments around the world. So we still have opportunities. And for us, from our perspective, it is not necessarily a skill problem, it's what we call a meaning problem. And to some degree, it's a character problem in terms of what are the values that should be influencing how we make decisions, to benefit everybody as we work through organizations.
Yeah, thank you for that, Luis. And it's interesting because you and I obviously have similar passions and paths, and that is that we're hoping to help leaders in their organizations just be better leaders, better human beings. And at the end of the day, if you do the right thing where you focus on the workers in your organization, it'll positively impact the bottom line to to that point. The other thing I find interesting in your website is we do not suffer for lack of answers. We suffer despite answers being all around us. So
Mhm.
that's kind of interesting perspective that you bring to the table. So help the audience understand. So, okay, I heard a little bit about meaningful purpose. What is that all about, or what are some solutions that you're bringing forward to organizations and individuals as you do your executive coaching around the world, type thing that's helpful for them to get on this path?
Sure. Well, let's first review what the problem is. And like I said previously, there are solutions. I'll talk about the solutions that we contribute, but we do have a problem that, like you were saying, quoting from my book and quoting from my website, that we don't have a solution problem, we have an implementation problem. Um, so the way, and when I say an implementation problem, as I'm doing my research right now for one of my books, upcoming books, I'm finding that issues that were present in the 50s, 60s, and the 70s, and you look at the statistics, same questions in terms of issues that we're confronting today. 40, 50 years ago, we're confronting the same problems. And when you look at the statistics, it has not moved at all. Haven't moved at all. So you have, billions of dollars being invested in leadership development, paying to consulting firms, to consultants, training organizations. And when you look at the data, it's having very little impact. So that's where we come in, and that's why meaningful purpose psychology came to be. Is yeah, we celebrate the fact that there's people that are attempting to have a positive difference out there, to have a positive impact, but something is happening that is not sticking. So we study, what sticks, and why it doesn't stick, and then we are filling that gap in terms of providing a solution to making sure that change is long lasting. So that's understanding first the problem is critical, that things are not improving over time; they remain the same, and sometimes they're getting worse. So what is the solution? The solution is a meaning solution. And just to keep it very brief, when I say meaning, Viktor Frankl defined meaning as what is meant. So if you have an outcome, that's what you meant. Now, to be fair, outcomes are are the result of three things. What are three things? It can be that that's what I mean to do, that I want to get that consequence, positive or negative, it doesn't matter. Number two, I have good intentions or good meanings, but on the other hand, I don't have the skills to be able to implement them. Therefore, I have a skill gap. I don't have a meaning gap. I don't have an intention gap. I have a competency gap that I need to fulfill, to improve on in order to have the desired effect. Where I can have my noble, excuse me, my noble meanings or intentions are backed by the right skills and competencies, and as a result, it leads to positive consequences. The third thing is context. So we have the meaning, what I mean to do, my intentions. Number two, do I have the skills to be able to implement it? And number three, the receptivity of the system. And you've heard me say, I quote often Rumler and Brage, where they said that if you pit a good performer against a bad system, the best system will always win. So change and improvement can be frustrated because the individual or the organization intends to get negative results, not deliberate intentional. They might be pursuing something positive. That's what they think. But the way they're going about it, the meaning they're giving to it, the approach that they're following, it doesn't lead to, bringing the best that can be brought. For instance, if you have a negative, opinion of employees, and that's the meaning that you have about the people you're working with, it's going to lead then to not potentiating, the profit of the company because you're not maximizing the potential of people, sort of a thing. So again, it's the meaning that I give to people, that I give to the situation. Do I have the skills and competencies, and do we have a welcoming environment, for change to happen? So that's where we fill that gap, is helping identify what is the root cause and what is the best approach to close the gap. And something that differentiates us from others is that others emphasize the doing, the competency piece. And even though they say it's meaning that they're pursuing, the approach to meaning that they have is to do things. And we believe that doing is important, but that needs to be backed up by a high quality meaning. And that's where we bring that difference, a positive difference.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, and very relevant today. And to your point, receptive environment, those listeners out there, we're talking about organizational culture. If you have a toxic environment, and there's organizations that have that reputation out there, it's not going to be a healthy place for the workers, just for everybody that's working there. So really good insights. I appreciate that, Luis. So interesting, Luis, with the future of work and everything that's out there today. There's the whole AI, there's remote, hybrid, and just shifting employees' expectations and so forth. What do you see as some of the things? How with the work that you do, how that might enable those organizations to be better places, better for the humans, and better places overall in the workplace. But what do you see? How do you see your work helping that out?
It goes back again to me. How do we find an organization, for instance? Organization in logoteleological approaches, organizations is the collective group of people that have this common agreement of doing something meaningful for society through products and services that we offer. And so it means that we uplift one another to get to a particular destination. So the organization in logoteleology is us. Anyone that subscribes to that is being logoteleological. There's also another definition of organization, which is the most predominant out there, which is organization that's it. So people serve the organization, people are not the organization. The organization is this entity that is on a piece of paper that says we exist as a corporation, we're about making money, making profit. We have our human resources, okay, people are resources, they're not really true partners in the sense of having this common goal. And the leadership models and management models are oriented to for the it type of organizational design and mindset. So while companies have that choice to, for organizations to be us or to be it, as long as they continue to follow the it view of organizations, they're going to continue to waste time, waste resources, waste opportunity and potential, and continue to make the work experience miserable for everybody. So where meaningful purpose psychology comes in is to help people understand the difference between us as an organization is us together on common cause. And there's a lot that goes into, creating that mindset, that culture, that approach. And what, again, you find in many organizations where the organization is it. And even people who are doing work, meaningful, or meaning type work or purpose work out there, they're still operating under the model of the organization as an it. And as long as that pursues, it doesn't matter, which philosophy, concept you use, positive psychology or, meaning and purpose, stuff like that, that is not going to have the desired effect. It has to be logoteleological in order for it to have a long-lasting effect. That's our bias.
And that's fair. You call that a bias, but I think a lot of the research keeps backing up that bias. Example, great companies that are keep coming out year after year as good to great, or yeah, great companies to work for. Excuse me. They keep showing how not only is it a great place to work and people feel psychologically safe and healthy and all that stuff, but they keep outperforming those that are not coming out on those lists. So obviously they're doing something, doing it right, making sure their leaders are well prepared and enabling the process. Number one, taking care of themselves, meaningful purpose, and then secondly, creating the environment, that organizational culture where people feel psychologically safe, and they can contribute in a healthy way. And then to your point, it's us. We're all in this organization together,
Right. Right.
moving it forward. So that interesting stuff there. So. So if you were to begin to wrap this up, Luis, again, in a little blip, at least remind them what meaningful purpose is, number one. But then number two, so if I buy that, if I buy Luis's argument that maybe that's something worth looking into a little bit more, what actionable advice would you provide to managers and employees and HR and senior executives overall to consider this?
Okay. So the first thing, what is meaningful? And then remind me what can leaders do? Based on our research and our studies, we call it the meaningful pathway. You heard me say this a number of times. What creates the best conditions for humans to thrive is when you have loving pro-social environments. Okay. And I say that from the perspective of research. There's something called psychology of love, by the way. Okay. And there's a lot from the field of positive psychology, also another humanistic psychology, that everybody, all this research and all this science points back to the fact that if you're pro-social, and I don't mean mechanical pro-social, I mean from the heart pro-social, that you truly love other human beings, you truly care about people and about their potential, and you're invested in helping people thrive. So that's a hard thing. And some people might call it touchy-feely, but I'm sorry, the research is overwhelming, and I can't deny the research. So the first thing that that creates a condition for a meaningful path or being meaningful is about caring for other people sincerely and from the heart and genuinely. That leads then for a second thing that people want, based on our studies, and that is psychological safety. You cannot have psychological safety unless you care for people first. So that's a precondition for that. The third thing, based on our study, that people want is, again, the description of what is the meaningful path and meaningful purpose psychology. Like I said, is love, is peace, or psychological safety. The third thing that they want is well-being and happiness. Okay, and this is where one of the columns of the meaningful paths, or one of the sciences that contributes to meaningful purpose psychology, is positive psychology and the research of positive psychology. So we have various schools that uphold the science of meaningful purpose psychology. One of them is positive psychology. And again, overwhelming, evidence that when you create the right kinds of conditions, people start to thrive. They're content, they're happy, they're engaged. It leads to then to the next step in the or phase of the meaningful path, and that is a phase of engagement. Again, some people use the concept of flow that can fit the positive side of flow, where once you have an environment that is pro-social, that provides psychological safety, where people feel, well, and they're content and happy, those creates conditions where people can be focused and creative and innovating and doing positive things. And people want to engage in positive work. They want to engage in something that is meaningful. And again, the research is overwhelming. And that leads then to prosperity. And our view of prosperity is not just financial prosperity, but it's also spiritual prosperity, intellectual prosperity, relational prosperity. So there's multiple dimensions to, or factors to the concept of prosperity. So where we come in terms of, we teach, of course, a meaningful path and the evidence behind it. And what we do is we tell leaders, this is what, the science says, this is what the research shows, this is a meaningful path. We can also tell you what is the meaningless path and what are the consequences. And what are the consequences if you care about the profit of the company? What is the impact on the profit of the company? When you follow the meaningful, you follow the meaningless path. So you have a choice, but it's not something mechanical that because I want to be much more profitable, I am going to then create these conditions within the company. What meaningful purpose psychology does is helps one individual at the time, the leader, not the leaders, the leader does inner work. We call it meaninglessity work. It's doing the inner work to vet their attributions, to vet their belief system, to vet their value system, which most people have not done. And then by vetting their belief system, their value system, their attributions, they can start checking to see whether their way of life, the way that they live their life, the way that they lead and manage organizations is it coherent with what is meaningful, with what leads to true, genuine success. And, so as leaders go through this experience of discovering, understanding themselves, understanding what is the meaning that they have given to life, which most people have not explored. Again, many times this meaning and purpose thing is very mechanical because it's not understood clearly in terms of how to truly integrate it into who we are as a human being, and then allowing us to self-regulate based on vetted information about our identity, our person, our belief systems. And that's what we help people to do, is to look at that information and say, am I living my life following meaningful principles or not? If you don't have clear standards, you can't self-regulate effectively. And then once you have the us all having in common a commitment to live meaningfully and to create conditions where everybody can thrive, that's what you have the magic happens then. That's where you're going to have that positive difference. But unless each individual, it's not like a collective, like the team doing, so like an MBTI sort of a thing, is each individual needs to do individual work. So when they come to the office or they come to the work environment, whatever that might be, that they know how to self-regulate, how to self-determine themselves, and how to collaborate with other people in order to get things done. And that's where the us, comes in. So that very briefly will be my answer to that.
Thank you very much, Luis. So there's a lot of information here.
Yeah.
To Luis's point, I just went through his laboratory on logoteleology and meaningful purpose. It's really profound and kind of puts a mirror up to people to help them really reflect and think about, at the end of the day, what's my purpose? And interestingly enough, that's really taken off nowadays. People are I study the trends, and so to your point on the research. What people are looking for beyond the paycheck nowadays is purpose. And it doesn't, irrespective of age, by the way. It can be in its 20s or in its 60s, but people are looking for what am I all about here at the end of the day? And how do we make this organization more organic, and with a better environment, overall organizational culture, but that it comes from the heart, because then people see that I'm being authentic, I'm being sincere, being genuine, that I really am on the lookout for the betterment of all of us, particularly in a day and age when, as you know, Luis, one of the books, Dying for a Paycheck, talks about work is the fifth cause of death due to stress. And for those any managers out there listening, by the way, you have a bigger impact on your people's life than their doctors do. And it turns out that for 70% of the workers, the biggest stressor at work is their boss. So there's an opportunity there to really look at some of the concepts and some of the philosophical perspectives, but but also at the same time, remember, this has got research behind it. Number one, number two, even if you aren't sure about the research, what you really have to think about for the listeners is, hey, when was I at the best of myself? What was going on? How was I feeling good? How was I feeling safe? How was I feeling happy and all of that stuff? And when we can intuitively connect with that, that kind of, for me anyway, connects to the work that you're doing, Luis. So obviously we have a lot of opportunity out there to do this. I appreciate all the work that you're doing. So we're in similar paths trying to help humanity get a little bit better, just one person at a time. It's the best that we can do. And what Luis is doing, one person at a time, is really what I've been trying to do. That in the era of AI, we need HI. We need a human intelligent workplace that really focuses on the people that are going to do the job. Because even though AI is here and going to continue to grow, the same thing happened with the PC. What seemed like 100 years ago. Now we can't live without it, but it turns out it complements us. So, Luis, I really appreciate this. You all will get his contact information here at the end of this podcast. Highly recommend you reach out. He's got some great articles out there and so forth, and some videos and so forth on his website, Boston Institute for Meaningful Purpose. Luis, any last takeaways for the listeners?
I would say take a look at meaningful purpose psychology as a science. I've published two books. I recommend the second one, which I co-author with Daniel Persuti. And then visit our webpage and look at some of the content there, or that there might be something that can help you. Just contact us, and we'll be happy to spend some time with you discussing your needs. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you.
you for that, Luis. And in case you didn't know, executive coaching has blown up around the world. So people, executives, first line supervisors, everyone, those that are seen as the future leaders, are recognizing a need to improve themselves. Hence, that's why executive coaching, and that's why the work that Luis and I do together and separately is beneficial out there. It's being needed. So again, thank you all for listening in again to the Human Intelligent Dialogue. And I'll continue to come out with some more with you. Luis, thank you so much. And I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you so much, Ed. Thank you so much.